That's Hern Li, 16 years old from Australia, wrapping up his quarterfinal recital tonight at the Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition. Rachel, he has quite a command of the keyboard and of music.
Yes,
don't you think?
I was absolutely impressed with that playing. I thought it was so beautiful and incredibly personal. He made a lot of personal choices in the Bach and the Haydn we noticed, but still it was so convincing. I was absolutely convinced.
It's almost as if he's making those choices not just to make a different choice, but there's
you can tell he believes in it. Yes,
there is integrity in the choices he's making. There are lots of interpretive choices to make in the chromatic fantasy, actually, how to arpeggiate certain figures.
Yes.
Lots of leeway there. And you also were remarking on the quality of the fugue, he played.
It's a very difficult fugue. I mean, all fugues
What's
are
the treachery in it, do you think? What's so hard about that fugue?
I think as the voices add on and there becomes more textures and also 16th notes start running, I think it's very easy to tend to run, to want to go ahead of yourself, but he had such a stability that I think even Glenn Gould would have been blown away. I mean, it was, but this was a competition, and he's 16, so doubly impressive.
And that Haydn, what was interesting to me about his Haydn, not only that he played it with a maturity sort of beyond 16 years, but also that
he made some different choices. He actually, I heard some things I had never heard before. And there were, I think, cadential, there were some runs, some notes that he added. But again, I was impressed because that shows that he's a very thoughtful pianist.
What I liked also was some of the articulation that he chose
in the Haydn.
Different and sort of string-like in a way, detached, sometimes not quite staccato, but detached in the way that strings would do. Also that wicked hard Chopin etude. That he just played.
Beautiful.
And that beautiful barcarolle we just heard. We have a little video about the Cliburn experience, experiencing the Cliburn, arriving to Dallas. I sat down with webcast producer Stephen Pierce. Take a look. The Cliburn is very excited to welcome these 23 highly accomplished young people to Dallas. And Dallas has in turn welcomed the Cliburn so beautifully. The Cliburn has always been known around the world as a producer of piano competitions, but what we also do on an almost daily basis is educate young people. It's not only about pushing and challenging them in the pressurized atmosphere of a competition, but about educating them as whole people and whole musicians. That's the mission.
These young musicians are the messenger of today and tomorrow, and we're really grateful to have them with us and grateful to have you to support them.
There are 23 young people from all over the world coming here. The first really exciting thing that happens when these kids arrive in Dallas is the draw party.
From Japan, Miyu Shindo.
And there's a lot of drama that goes with the draw party, of course. Contestants don't want to be the first to play. Sometimes they don't want to be the last to play. There's a lot of conflicting traditional wisdom about what's the best place in a competition to play. Miyu Shindo is 17. She says, if every human in this world will love music and tell each other, thank you for giving me wonderful happiness, we would not hate anyone. The Cliburn Junior is the brainchild, actually, of Cliburn President and CEO Jacques Marquis, who saw this need and this really great group of young people who were not being exposed, perhaps as well as they could be.
Part of this competition is not only a competition, it's a festival. It's a learning process. They will do some piano lessons and master classes and some concerts with us for the 10 next days.
Piano is the very loneliest instrument. The hours and hours spent alone in a practice room, a solitary practice room, do take their toll. So one thing we try to do through the competition and festival is to try to get these kids together to make them realize that they're not alone in this sometimes very solitary pursuit. And it's not so much about who wins the competition or any of the prizes that we're giving out either. It is about coming away feeling more knowledgeable about yourself as a musician and a person. we like to have somebody sitting in the third chair when we come back from a video segment. This is Lowell Lieberman, who's on our jury for this Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition. He's also figured in Cliburns of the past. Was it your 3 impromptus? Do you call them impromptus?
Yes, it was.
That won the Cliburn Invitational, the Composer's Invitational, I think is what we called it.
Right.
Was that 2001?
I believe it was.
Right. For a while we had at the Cliburn a competition within a competition. That the commission piece was also a part of a competition. And I can't remember, did you submit that with your name or blind? Or did we know that's...
We were invited to submit pieces, but then I think they were selected anonymously. And then the winner was, I believe, the most number of semifinalists who
played your
chose
piece.
to perform the piece, yes.
Right. It's not a mystery why pianists choose to play Lowell's music so much. Lowell, you write. Rachel and I have been talking a lot about composers who write so gratefully for the piano, who write in such a way that you feel like the piece is playing itself, and you are one of those. I think a lot of it is because you play the piano, right?
I try to play the piano. After hearing some of these kids, I might give up because it's it's amazing.
It's humbling, isn't it?
It's very humbling to hear a 14-year-old get up and play something in a way that you could never approach.
Do you write at the piano?
I do. Especially if I'm composing piano music, a lot of the ideas come through improvisation, and I tend to work mostly at the piano.
Do you consider yourself a fast writer or a slow writer?
It doesn't feel like I'm a fast writer, but everybody else tells me I'm a fast writer.
Do people tell you that what Rachel and I were just talking about, that your music is so well laid out for the piano, or do they tell you it's too hard? What do they tell you? Do you get a range of opinion?
Both. I get both. and actually, when I have to perform my own pieces, as I am, when we're not involved with the competition, I'm practicing every moment I can because I have a bunch of concerts coming up where I'm playing 4 of my own pieces. So I'm practicing them actively right now and cursing myself every step of the way for making them so difficult.
I think it was your 45th birthday. We had a concert, Cliburn at the Modern Art Series, and you played 3 pieces on your 45th birthday in Fort Worth. It was one of your birthdays anyway. It was your actual
I think it was
birthday.
40. I think
the
you're
flute
right.
sonata and a new sonata you had written for Andres Diaz.
Right. You have an amazing
And
memory.
piano quintet.
Yes. Yeah.
It was a lot of playing
Yeah.
that night.
It was.
So how do you get ready for something? Do you approach your music as if it were someone else's?
You have to, because there's a real danger when you write a piece that you think you know it better than you do. And of course, playing piano is all about muscle memory. So having written the piece has nothing to do with muscle memory. So you have to be even extra diligent in a way to learn it, because I've had the experience of performing some of my pieces when I thought I knew them better than I actually did. The one lucky thing is nobody else knows if you're messing something up.
Except you know what?
Well,
certain
now
pieces,
they do with certain pieces, yeah.
have become sort of canon with you. The flute sonata, of course, is one of your greatest hits. And so, some of the nocturnes for piano, I should think, and gargoyles, which we might even hear.
Is perhaps the most performed contemporary American piano piece right now. I think
that's great, right?
Yeah.
What are you working on now?
I am working right now on a song cycle that's a joint commission between Wigmore Hall and Kennedy Center for a fantastic soprano named Brenda Ray.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to be premiered in September.
And we've talked a lot about the process of composition. Do you get together with the soprano and figure out what poets you're going to use? Where does the libretto come from?
In this case, yes. I asked the soprano if she had any poets or particular poems, and she wanted female poets, and she wanted them to be about nature. So she suggested a couple, and then I suggested a couple, and then we kind of
So it's
got
always a
together.
negotiation
Yeah,
somehow
yeah,
with
yeah.
this. Tell me this: do you find when you're entering a period where you're writing, does it ever take you any time to get other people's notes out of your head and get
yes.
down to sort of distilled Lowell Lieberman?
Absolutely, which is why the whole thing of trying to balance composing and piano playing, at least for me, I find it to be very difficult, because when I'm practicing other people's music, I can't write, and also when I'm writing, that's a 24-hour day occupation. I mean, you've got that uncompleted phrase continuously on playback in your head until it's completed. So,
Speaking of the unfinished phrase, does it also begin in your head? Does that phrase that you're talking about, that same phrase, does that begin in your head, or has it been a part of improvising at the piano, or both?
It happens both ways. I mean, I still have the cocktail napkin that I wrote the opening theme of my flute concerto on at a bar at 3 o'clock in the morning after several margaritas.
You never know
So
where
you never know when it's going to
inspiration
hit you.
is going to strike.
Usually it does strike when you're actively working at it, because it's difficult and you need concentration. But every now and then an idea does just kind of
Do you trust them?
fall out of the sky.
Do you trust them when they fall out of the sky?
The next morning, maybe.
So you've got to think about it just a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
Fascinating discussion always with composers, the act of creation. It's not something I do
No,
really, so
neither
it's
do
it's
I.
always such a fascinating thing. I think Van Cliburn, if he were with us, would love your music. The way it fits on the piano, the way it sounds on the piano, it's definitely something he would have liked. And speaking of Van, take a look at this.
Moscow, April 1958. A musical competition was held against the backdrop of a world beset by suspicion and fear. Nuclear annihilation was a constant threat. The United States and the Soviet Union were bitter enemies in a Cold War. Then, suddenly, from out of the American West, came a long, tall Texan who struck a chord for harmony and friendship. At a time when the Soviet Union and the United States were stockpiling weapons of destruction, 23-year-old Van Cliburn drew the two nations together in a mutual love of music. He also gave the United States a much-needed boost to its national ego. To everyone's surprise, Van Cliburn, the musician, became both a cultural hero and an unofficial diplomat.
See, this is the reason we do those videos, so that we can get somebody in the interview chair without you noticing. This is Luca Grianti. Have I said it right?
Correct, yes.
Participant in the festival part of the proceedings here in Dallas. We were just talking about how many languages you know, Luca. Are you
Because
on
it
language
says-
number 4 or language number 3?
Three?
Do you think?
I can speak fluent Italian and English. I'm bilingual, but I can also speak a bit of French. And I'm trying to learn German, especially for next year. You know, conservatoire applications, college. I might move. I might go to Germany. So,
I see.
Wow.
But right now you're living in London
Manchester.
Manchester, okay,
Yes, I've been
okay.
living there since I was 11.
since you were 11.
Yes.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's like a music school. So Cheetham School of Music.
Okay. And how
So-
was your experience here?
I've loved every second here, really, because apart from the community concerts, the master classes, the private lessons, I didn't think I'd learn so much just from listening to other competitors. Really, I tried to listen to as many as I could, and really I learned so much. Like,
But you attend a music school,
Yeah.
right? So is it just the number of pianists and the
it's
young people you're
I don't know. It's the prestige as well of the Cliburn, I think. Like, and the fact that like some of the best 13 to 17-year-olds worldwide are here competing and the festival. It's just inspirational, I think. And even when I practice, it seems like my practice is more efficient, more high quality. I don't know why. But it must
Seems
be
like
the
a
atmosphere.
more
yeah.
concentrated atmosphere, a more
Correct,
focused atmosphere. So what is a typical day like here? Or is there a typical day at this?
Well, every day is different, but usually I wake up around 7:30, maybe 7:45. Then I go breakfast, and you straight away start talking about music. Like music is, we always talk about music like in conversation. So like breakfast in the canteen, in the cafeteria, that's what we talk about straight away. Then we sign up for practice times usually in the lounge, and then we can go to master classes and see like master classes, learn from them, and then at around half two, we go to the auditorium.
To the competition.
And I try to hear as many people as I can because really I learn so much. And lunch and dinner you socialize with everyone, and that's quite fun as well.
You know, Rachel and I have talked a lot about this. One of the things we were aiming to do here at the Cliburn in the festival part of the proceedings was to demonstrate to students all over the world that they're not alone. You know, that as pianists we're so often in a silo by ourselves practicing for 5 or 6 hours a day, and what we wanted to really drive home in this was that there are people like you all over the world. And so when you said that about we're going to breakfast at 8 o'clock and immediately we're talking about music. That's the first thing and the only thing that comes up and comes.
No, yes, it's definitely a very important topic, and no, it's nice to like share each other's experiences, and we certainly learn a lot from like our peers. So
have you guys had any sight reading parties? That's what we used to.
Not yet.
Oh,
no.
not yet. But doing 4 hands, you know, this is such a good opportunity with all these pianists.
I think in a few days maybe there's a specific class that they organize.
Oh, really?
For chamber music and 4 hands.
Oh, that's
wonderful, wonderful.
So,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, we all have iPads now, so it's so easy to, pull up music.
You know, sight reading parties are the greatest idea because the only way really to learn to sight read well is to do it.
To do it, yeah.
And the only way to learn to keep going when you're sight reading and not to self-correct is to have to play with somebody else and to have to keep going.
I mean, I've never done it before with somebody else, but something I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the greatest thing because you can both sound bad together at the same time, and it's just.
And you're learning at the same time.
And you're learning at the same time.
It's so great.
I'm going to try that then.
Oh,
definitely.
good.
Thanks a lot, Luca.
Thanks a lot.
We're
Thank
glad
you.
you're having a great time. Look at this video of Miyu Shindo, our next competitor.
I really like Tchaikovsky's variation because I can imagine about Russia. I study in Russia and I really like Russian people, Russian language, culture, music, and nature. 1 year ago, I moved to Russia to study piano. I study with Valery Piasetsky. He is very great musician, pianist, and teacher. When I couldn't speak Russian language well, sometimes I speak with my friend in English, but it's not my own language, so I started to speak about music, about pianists, about musicians. We can talk very, very long time, and then we can enjoy the conversation. So music is very, very strong skill to communicate with people.
Hello everyone, welcome back. This is a friendly reminder to please turn your phones on silent at this moment. Over some years I've noticed that phones tend to go off after intermission more than they do at the first half of concerts. We have one more quarterfinalist left. Her name is Miyu Shindo from Japan, age 17. Her quarterfinal recital consists of 3 pieces. She will begin with the Mozart Sonata number 11 in A major, K331, first movement. Then she will perform the Schubert Impromptu in G flat major, opus 90 number 3, and she will end her program with Franz Liszt's Rhapsody Espagnole. Please welcome back to the stage, Miyu Shindo.
Shindo is wrapping up a brilliant recital at the Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition. Rachel, she played pretty well,
That
right?
was a stunning recital.
You know, we stepped away from set just to watch a little bit of it in the personnel lounge.
And she
I
was
heard-
the only one who chose a Mozart sonata.
Right, and
Yeah.
played it so beautifully.
So beautifully. Yeah.
And then when she started the Spanish
And
Rhapsody,
Schubert impromptu and
you
Spanish
said,
Rhapsody.
quote, "Go girl." And you know, that's the first time I've heard that in this competition. But let's talk about that a minute,
Okay.
if we can.
Sure.
I want to talk about women playing the piano, women in classical music in general, and how you think all that's going.
I think
We don't
it's-
talk about it enough, I don't think.
I think it's going well. There are a lot of very successful female musicians these days, and I think it's so great because it's really stirring some things up, you know. And I think gender inequality, well, not just gender, but inequality in general has existed for so long.
Sure.
And for women to have the same platform and the same voice, really, to be heard is really important.
You know, and it's happening now. We have a lot more women conductors. We're seeing that a
Women
lot more in this
composers.
country, and women composers. And it's hopefully getting right on the cusp of them just being called composers and not women composers or
That's true.
women conductors
Yeah.
or anything. They're
Yeah.
just going to be all composers and pianists and so forth. That's what we're going
Hoping
for.
for, yeah.
We certainly hope. Anyway, she played brilliant recital. And I think what we struggle to put into words sometimes here is that we cannot believe that these are 17-year-old people when they play with such understanding and such artistry and such a lot of qualities that can't be taught. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You can see when a performer is not just doing what the teacher told them to do. I mean, it's not like they said phrase it this way
Right.
or play a crescendo this way. You can see and hear that they actually not just feel it, but they understand
Right, and
the
there is
structure
real-
and the rhythmic propulsion and everything.
Real intention
Yes.
behind what they're doing and not just imitation.
Yeah, not
maybe,
imitation.
But real intention. I loved also the way she put this program together. Mozart, that wonderful set of variations, and as you said, the only Mozart that
We've heard, yeah.
in this round. Is it the only Mozart we've heard, period?
I
It
think
could be
so,
the only
yeah.
Mozart we've heard in this competition. And those are difficult sonatas to bring off. They were certainly never meant for a concert hall this size, or maybe to be played in public at all. We don't know. But very difficult
Very
to bring
difficult,
off.
and because it's not really the first sonata you think of when you think of a competition. There are other Mozart sonatas that are more brilliant or more technical, like the last one,
Sure.
576 in D major. But this one is very quiet, very understated, and I think that's what I really appreciate about Miyu. She's playing this blazing list next to a Schubert impromptu, but everything is just about the music. It's not really about fireworks. She has plenty of it, but it's just she's serving the music, and I thought that was really beautiful.
Fantastic to hear. Here's Jacques Marquis doing a little walk and talk behind the scenes of the Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition.
We're here at SMU, and the Cliburn is presenting for the first time in Dallas the junior competition and festival, and we're so pleased to be here. In the next few days, we'll have young competitors between 13 and 17 years old playing concert, doing seminars, doing piano lessons, most importantly, learning about music, learning about life. The partnership is fantastic with SMU. SMU just bought 10 new grands, Steinway, and all the kids are going to the pianos now and practicing. All over, everybody is a little bit nervous, a little bit anxious, but there's a great energy in the room. Here you have the practice rooms, and we cannot go there. We leave them alone. This is their time. Nobody can have access to this place. Some of them will listen to the other one to see how he does. The kids are very interesting. At this age, there's less filter. I think the personality is is still growing, but all of them are very, very, very talented. And suddenly they come here and we bring the best of the world, and they will compete and learn. And that's the main point. We want them to learn a lot through this competition. This is Ruth Hall. This is where we'll have the prelims, the quarterfinal round, and the semifinal round. There will be 23 for the first round. From 23, we'll go to the second round at 14. And after that, to the semifinal round to 6. And the 3 last will play with the DSO at the Meyerson. And this is the piano that they will all play on. This is not one of the piano that they will play on. It's a nice piano. What are you doing today?
I'm just getting the cameras ready.
The webcast will be from the first round to the last round. The webcast is our way to keep in touch with the world and bring the eyes of the world to Dallas. We had in 2015 for the junior more than 250,000 views. We hope really to be more than 300,000 views this year. We don't want this to be a cutthroat competition. This is a learning experience, and the jurors are there to do that. And this is the jury room. We gathered the jury from all over the world. They are established musicians in all their countries. What we want them is to share with the next great artists, to share their knowledge, their passion, their vision, their experience with them. They will meet all the competitors individually to talk about their performances after they're out of the competition. It's kind of doing a master class in front of 7 masters. The most important thing for the kids to take away, I think, is I want them to embrace all these opportunities for the future.
And we're sitting with Tim Banker, who is the Director of Content and Production for From the Top. And that's a show that you were on, Rachel.
I was.
So let's have a little reunion.
Yeah. So wait,
Tim, did you produce her show?
I was absolutely there. I remember Music Institute of Chicago.
That's where I was studying.
And we were in a church, right? It was like they had, before they had their space that they have now.
Well, they renovated the church into a concert hall.
I see.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful space. Yeah, absolutely. And I remember it was so exciting. I was 14.
Yep.
I played Liszt La Campanella. And there was a live audience, but you knew that you were being taped.
Right.
So it was like, I can't make any mistakes. Yeah, it was a very memorable experience for me.
Yeah, I remember
and
that
then
show.
doing the interview right after, you know, it's kind of like preparing you to learn how to speak, not just to play.
Right. Some performers are more nervous about the interview than they are by their playing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're not used to it.
That's right.
Were you thinking more about La Campanella while you were playing, or, oh my gosh, I have to do an interview after this while you were playing? Do you remember?
You know, I think I was more nervous about the radio part. I think playing is just kind of easier for us.
Wow,
yeah, but it's kind of like, oh my God, we're being taped. There's a live audience. It's very exciting.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the interview was like? What you talked about?
No, but I remember it was. I remember it was not so long. You know, I mean, it's kind of more background. You know, probably where I was from, all that. So
a snapshot of who you are at that time.
Fun, yeah.
So off camera, we were talking about what particular show that was, and you knew the number.
I didn't know the number.
No, but you knew
I
the
knew
number
the show.
now.
I knew the show. Yeah. Right now we're recording this show that here at the Cliburn will be 374. If you can imagine, 374.
How many years?
I have been with From the Top since it's the second to last pilot that From the Top did. So that was 19 years ago. We're getting ready to celebrate our 20th anniversary. And
so you know what you're doing now, then?
Well,
you've done a few shows.
Gosh, I wish I could say that with full confidence. We're always learning.
Where do you find the talent? I mean, I know the woods are full of talent.
We find them at places like the Cliburn competition.
This is a hotbed of talent.
It's incredible. I mean, if you think I won't be approaching a few kids, you're wrong. But,
what is the process, though?
We have a national network. After this much time, we simply get applications, you know, through the net. Mm-hmm. But we also do serious recruitment with a sort of a national network at this point of youth orchestras, teachers, choruses, through our station affiliates. through just calling people. We still do on-the-ground calls, so because we are always looking for kids that aren't necessarily, in the sort of structure of classical music that we can feature, so we can, find a young performer and really give them a great opportunity they might not get.
How was that in the beginning then, finding that talent were you establishing a network of contacts still?
Absolutely, it was a lot harder, definitely having to do a lot more cold calling and getting the trust of teachers, getting the trust of kids themselves. And, it wasn't for a while that our sort of national reputation started to emerge, and then young people really wanted to be on the program. Now it's we're lucky, it's at this point it's a wonderful badge of honor for young people like the Cliburn, so we get to enjoy that talent.
Rachel, do you remember how it happened for you? How did it happen that you got to be on the show?
I think just the fact that the show was coming to Chicago.
That's right.
Yeah, because for me that hadn't happened before, and that was so exciting. It was my music school.
Right.
It was right in my hometown, so I didn't have to go to Boston or another location. I know that's what happens with some other musicians, that they get, they still have to drive maybe 2 hours or a little bit further away from their hometown. But I was lucky because you came to us.
Yeah, and wherever we tour nationally, and we do shows all around the country. They're live events, and everywhere we go, we have at least 1 or 2 local performers. So that's a wonderful thing for us, because we can be, it expands automatically who we get to feature. But every show also has a national portrait, so we fly kids in as well to every show.
Take us through a typical show. What happens first?
All right. Well, first, of course, we find the young performers, and every show is a puzzle. We want every show to have gender diversity, every show to have age diversity, every show we give away scholarships, right? So every show has to have a couple of kids who qualify for our scholarship, which is needs-based, and every show has to have instrument diversity, and then we want good stories. It isn't just who makes the best music when we cast from the top. It's who can tell us a great story.
Right.
And so all of those things come into play. We then select a group of kids. They get excited. We fly them to where they're going to go. It's about a 4-day process with us.
To take one show?
Yeah, because we do a lot of leadership development with the young musicians. Just like the Cliburn here has, these incredible other activities that you guys are doing. From the top sort of experience has community engagement and has arts leadership workshops, as well as the recording.
So that's a big deal. That's a lot of programming that you're doing for these kids.
Right.
And you do it how many times per year?
I would say 16 to 18 live events a year, and then there are a bunch of other things that happen too. But yeah.
Wow.
So
fantastic.
It's great fun. Yeah.
We are so happy to have you here, Tim Banker.
It is such an honor. It is such a no-brainer for From the Top to be at the Cliburn with this unreal talent. It gets
better
amazing.
every time. It's it's sort of like people run the mile in a little bit shorter time every year.
Isn't that scary?
It also happens with young pianists as well. Tim Banker, we thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Speaking of young people, the Cliburn is serving young people almost every school day of the year. Take a look at this.
Cliburn in the Classroom is a program where we go into elementary schools. We present a program to second, third, and fourth grade students.
By bringing these kind of programs to our students, we do educate the whole child. Exposure to the visual and performing arts at every grade level makes the kids better academically.
The mission of the Cliburn is basically to share classical music with as many people as possible and to encourage the absolute highest levels of artistic achievement.
The Cliburn has always had a history of going into schools. Education has always been important.
So we bring all of these things together with Cliburn in the Classroom to share excellent classical music.
Each program coheres around a theme. This morning we've been doing a program called Playing with Numbers, which is about the intersection of music and math. This afternoon we're doing a program called Musical Opposites, which is exactly what it sounds like. Was it loud music or quiet music? Cliburn in the Classroom is now at over 250 school performances every year.
We take our grand piano into 186 schools.
We have a Steinway that travels with us to every school. It traveled over 5,000 miles last year. We see over 50,000 students, so we have really grown.
For the kids to get to see an artist play that grand piano live in their school, that is a great thing for our kids, because otherwise they may not get to see an artist play live in concert like that.
One of the great things about this program is that we're able to offer it for free to all of the school districts and all of the schools that participate.
I think it's really important for our schools to be able to have this program free of cost, because we are predominantly lower socioeconomic disadvantaged district. We have over 70% Title I schools, most of which are our elementary schools. So by bringing the Cliburn into the elementary schools, it's really provided those kids with an opportunity to get exposure, and especially to piano. So for them to get to hear and see one of the great artists that they bring in, and to hear how that relates to what they're learning in school, is just a fantastic opportunity for them.
The kids are not ever just sitting and listening. There's always an activity.
The programs are written to be interactive.
They always do a great job about incorporating the kids into questions and activities that go along in these concerts.
5, 6, 7, 8, 6. We try to make them super excited about classical music, and we also try to make sure that it matches their curriculum.
They write lessons that will touch on things that we're talking about in our program. So they might write a report on one of the composers that we talk about. And in doing that, then they reach over all curriculum levels: math, English, history, language arts, not just music.
And they can relate directly what they're learning in the classroom to what they're hearing on stage.
I always tell my students that music and almost anything relate together, and the Cliburn is a great way for them to see how everything works together and how music is very important in many different aspects and many different subjects.
Classroom brings over 300 performances to area school children in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade every school year. So we're a little tired at the end of a school year. We're sitting with Sam Holland, who is the Dean of the Meadows School of the Arts here at SMU. This is a beautiful place you've got here. We love being here, but it's not just music that's at the School of the Arts.
Thank you. Well, of course, we love having you here every bit as much. I mean, this is just, we're so jazzed to be able to host the Cliburn Junior for the first time. But you're right. I mean, the Meadows School consists of 11 academic units. It's not only the fine and performing arts, it's also the communication arts and film and creative computation and data science applied to the arts.
And advertising,
a lot of far outside
right.
advertising, journalism. But music is fantastic here. Music was one of the, when the SMU opened its doors 105 years ago, there was a theology school, a liberal arts school, and a music school. And it's been important ever since.
Wow, it's been a great place. The facility is fantastic. You've had such an interesting path to being a dean. You didn't have as your ambition when you were in college to be a dean, right? Or
no,
did you?
No, I actually did not. I call myself the accidental dean, actually. I mean, I started out as a piano major, which is why this is a particularly wonderful event. Honestly, I never would have been good enough to be on the stage with these kids today.
We actually feel the same way.
Absolutely.
At their age, we're just blown away by their talent as well.
It's astonishing, but it's great to be able to recognize and support them today, much later in life. But I started as a piano major. My first tenure track position as a faculty member was here at SMU. And I did just about everything you could do in the Division of Music at SMU, from teaching piano pedagogy, teaching class piano. At some point, for some reason, they made me Associate Director of Music. I took that position reluctantly, but it worked out well, and I became Director of Music. And that, again, that was reluctant, but it worked out well. And so that when there was a vacancy for the dean, I was invited to apply. And I thought I would learn something from that search that I could transfer to another job application. So no one was more surprised than I when they actually called me and offered me the position. And I've been in it for 5 years now.
Fantastic.
I love it.
Fantastic. We love having you to deal with. We really do. What are you most proud of about Meadows? Hard to say, right?
That's very hard to say because it's like saying, which child are you most
right.
proud
Which child
of?
do you love the most?
Yeah.
Right.
I love the music program. It's an extraordinary program. The piano program is thriving. As you
And
know,
always
the jury,
has.
It always has, kind of quietly, sometimes in the background. But we have major competition winners. The chairman of this jury is one of our alumni and a very special person to us.
That's right. Alessio spent a lot of time here and came here when he was 16.
Yes.
Didn't he
Younger
tell
than
us?
that,
Yeah.
actually. I think he was 14, maybe.
Wow.
Just a child, really, when he left Italy and came here. So I'm very proud of music, but I'm also very proud when our dancers are ranked number 3 in the country. And I'll leave you to guess who that puts ahead of us, but it's pretty thin air up there. When our theater program just recruits incredible talent from all over the country.
You have very vibrant dance and
I could go on about the communication program.
What's your vision for the future of Meadows?
What
are your ambitions?
That's a great question. I want to be the most advanced, integrated school of arts and communication in the country. The arts and communication fields need each other. Artists are continually needing vehicles for getting their work into the world.
That's so
That's
true.
exactly what communications do. And communication people need content, so the artists are creating every day. And so I want to be at the front of that field.
Fantastic. Sam Holland, thank you so much for being with us.
My great pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We've got a little video to show you of our third prize winner in 2017. Take a look at Daniel Shu. All right, and we're back with a young man who made his recital and concerto debuts within 1 week of each other. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you
How'd
remember
that? Why
everything
did that
you
happen? How does something like that happen?
I mean, the concerto was organized by my teacher. Like she helped set me up with a local orchestra, and so I got to play with them, which was really nice. It was my first time playing with an orchestra, and it was kind of scary because I played the concerto. It was Beethoven first. I played the concerto with other pianists, but it's so different with an orchestra. And then the solo piano, I just got invited by the local music store. They have a really nice Steinway hall, and they just held it there. It's just a small little concert.
I'm going to introduce you by name now to the folks watching. This is Ryan Zhu. He was the first competitor to play in this Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition. So now we've got that part out of the way, and we've introduced you. So you were saying about playing a concerto with the orchestra. What my teacher was always really fond of saying was that the first time you play a concerto with orchestra, the very first time you play any concerto with an orchestra, it's like you don't even know it. It's like,
exactly.
It's what am I doing here? Why?
It's honestly terrifying. Like, it's honestly
Of
terrifying.
course it is.
It honestly is. Like, to the people outside, you watch it, the audience thinks it's a great performance, and the pianist is fantastic, and whatever. But then when you actually get on stage and you play, think about it. You're one pianist, and you're trying to match with 80 other musicians. It's honestly quite horrifying once you really get on stage and really play with them. Yeah.
Ryan, you and Rachel were talking a little bit off camera about which cadenza you chose for the Beethoven First that you played.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are 3 cadenzas, but I chose the longest one. And so I've gotten a few questions about that, like, why did you choose the longest one? Like, why do you want to torture yourself? And whatnot.
That's what I said.
But then I'm just here thinking, it's not really about the length. I think it's about the substance of the cadenza, because if you look at the other cadenzas, I don't think they can really compare. The 3rd cadenza it's so Beethovenian, and it's just very awe-inspiring once you play it. And to learn it, it's very interesting. It's very interesting to learn and analyze and to really play it with an orchestra. Of course, with orchestra. You're not playing with an orchestra, but to play in that setting, it's really nice.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, tell us what a typical day is like for you here at the competition and festival and so forth.
Well, I mean...
Or is there a typical day here?
There is, more or less. Like, nowadays, when we have the competition, I usually wake up, and then I go to breakfast, and usually I come back here to practice a bit first, and then the first concerts always start at 2:30, and so I always try to catch a few performances if I can, and then of course the next set of performances at 7:30. And I think it's a really nicely devised schedule. Everything's very organized, everything's very well planned, and honestly, I'm surprised by the level of organization it is here. It's very, very well organized, really.
Well, we've done this a couple times before, so we kind of know what we're doing. Now, Ryan, we noticed off camera when we were talking to Sam that you were congratulating Miyu Shindo. You were a very good colleague as well as a very good pianist. So,
oh, wow.
Have we done a good job at creating the atmosphere that you guys can sort of not be in your individual silos practicing all the time, but that you actually do seem to like each other and support each other in this contest and so forth? So
I mean, absolutely. It's a very interactive environment, because you have the competition, of course, and that's competitive, and everyone's playing their best and everything. But there are these other events which you really get to communicate with others. And one thing I think is really important about competitions is that it's not always just a competition. Because once it's just a competition, you kind of lose the musical element of it. Like, what's the point of just throwing yourself into a neck-high glob of anxiety and just trying to battle it out for first? Like, I think I've always been told, and I believe this is true, you can always learn. when you're with music. And with everything else, of course. The learning, though, isn't just from teachers and everything. It's from each other. It's from our colleagues. We learn so much from each other, how we play, how we interact. And bringing us all together like this, it really gives us a really good opportunity to communicate with others that are doing the same thing that we're doing. So really, I'm very happy.
The best thing you said was neck high glob of anxiety. I'm going to probably remember that and use it if it's okay with you.
Yo, sure. Yeah.
I will cite you every time
Yes.
I use it. Ryan has spoken very well about the Cliburn experience. Here's a little video we put together about that very thing. The Cliburn is very excited to welcome these 23 highly accomplished young people to Dallas. And Dallas has in turn welcomed the Cliburn so beautifully. The Cliburn has always been known around the world as a producer of piano competitions, but what we also do on an almost daily basis is educate young people. It's not only about pushing and challenging them in the pressurized atmosphere of a competition, but about educating them as whole people and whole musicians. That's the mission.
These young musicians are the messenger of today and tomorrow, and we're really grateful to have them with us and grateful to have you to support them.
There are 23 young people from all over the world coming here. The first really exciting thing that happens when these kids arrive in Dallas is the draw party.
From Japan, Miyu Shindo.
And there's a lot of drama that goes with the draw party, of course. Contestants don't want to be the first to play. Sometimes they don't want to be the last to play. There's a lot of conflicting traditional wisdom about what's the best place in a competition to play. Miyu Shindo is 17. She says, if every human in this world will love music and tell each other, thank you for giving me wonderful happiness, we would not hate anyone. The Cliburn Jr. is the brainchild, actually, of Cliburn President and CEO Jacques Marquis, who saw this need and this really great group of young people who were not being exposed, perhaps as well as they could be.
Part of this competition is not only a competition, it's a festival. It's a learning process. They will do some piano lessons and master classes and some concerts with us for the 10 next days.
Piano is the very loneliest instrument. The hours and hours spent alone in a practice room, a solitary practice room, do take their toll. So one thing we try to do through the competition and festival is to try to get these kids together to make them realize that they're not alone in this sometimes very solitary pursuit. And it's not so much about who wins the competition or any of the prizes that we're giving out either. It is about coming away feeling more knowledgeable about yourself as a musician and a person. I think we found our next co-host
Ryan.
for the Cliburn,
Yeah.
right? Ryan is going to be
How fun.
a host, I think, on one of these someday. Rachel, what was the most unexpected thing you heard here, your biggest surprise, in terms of a performance or even just a piece that you heard that you thought, wow, what a surprise?
Well, you know, I really appreciated when Shuan played Bach Chromatic Fantasy and Fugue because besides the required prelude and fugue we heard in the quarterfinal, in the preliminary round, nobody actually chose. I think he's the only one who chose a Bach as a free choice. So I thought that was wonderful and brave. And I think the Stravinsky Serenade also was quite an unusual choice.
Fantastic. Here's a little bit of Shuan Hern Li playing.
Absolutely in control and just so poised. And a beautiful Chopin
Beautiful
barcarolle.
Chopin barcarolle as well, absolutely.
He just showed a lot of variety because he played Bartók etudes in the preliminary round, which is a lot of virtuosity, but he shows also poetry in Chopin.
One of the most unexpected things I heard, of course, it's not going to be unexpected for anybody for me to say this, was Benjamin Rossen playing that Stravinsky serenade in the first round, and then he showed us again the strength of playing to your personality in the quarterfinals as well. Really enjoyed that. Ava Gevorgian also gave us some really, really fantastic playing. Take a look at this.
With that charming Beethoven.
Really, and as we said, it's so hard to get that charm.
I think it was difficult for her.
Right. And that should have read that she is from Russia. Chopin Polonaise, so powerful. So hard to make a decision. You know, every jury always says that. So hard to make a decision. You're all so great. Wish we could give you all the prize. And sometimes it really is true. And coming from 14 contestants down to 6 for these semifinals, very difficult thing to do. In the semifinals, they'll have to play for 40 minutes. We've increased the time by 10 minutes each time, and this time they have to play a contemporary work and something that lasts a substantial amount of time, I think 18 minutes in this round. So we will soon see who our 6 are. We're going to take you down to stage right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the semi-finalist announcement of the 2019 Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition and Festival. I would like to introduce to the stage Cliburn President and CEO Jacques Marquis and Jury Chairman Alessio Bax. At this moment, I would like to give the microphone to Jacques.
Thank you. Thank you, audience here at SMU in Dallas. Thank you, SMU, for hosting us. Thank you, online audience. The last number was more than 100,000 views so far. And this is fun. At the Cliburn, we do competitions, but we're nothing without the candidates and the music. Then I would like to thank the 14 candidates. Please rise. Thank you. If you want to listen to all of them, you can always go on the Cliburn YouTube channel and we'll have all the concerts there. It's my pleasure to introduce to you now, for the results, Alessio Bax.
Thank you and good evening. In the last 2 days, we've been so fortunate to hear 14 wonderful artists, and they gave us performances of technical excellency, passion, individuality, and integrity. There were performances, all of them, that moved us so deeply. We all wish we could hear the rest of the repertoire, the wonderful repertoire they prepared for us for the rest of the competition. But unfortunately, only 6 will be able to advance to the semifinals. And those 6, in no particular order: Ji-won Yang from South Korea, Avery Galliano from the United States, J Jun Li Bui from Canada. Hern Lee from Australia. Chun Lam Miyu from Hong Kong. And Yeva Georgian from Russia and India. Thank you.
In 2 days, the piano has to rest a little bit. Then in 2 days, you will have 2 concerts, 2 recitals, 2:30 on June 5th and on the night, 7:30, and they will play a recital of 40 minutes. And the day after, they all will play the first movement of the concerto that they're playing. And just for you, we'll hear Rack 2, first movement, Tchaikovsky, first movement. Rachmaninoff Paganini will hear some variation defined by the jury members. Chopin, first concerto, first movement. Rachmaninoff, first concerto, first movement. And Rachmaninoff, third concerto, first movement. Then come with us and join us for the semifinal round. Thank you so much.
Now the 14 have become 6 semifinalists, Rachel, and we will start the semifinal round right back here at the Meadows School of the Arts in Dallas on Wednesday at 2:30. Rachel, anytime you want to come back and co-host, will you just come back every time?
I
right?
would love to.
Fantastic. It's been great
so
to have
much
you
fun.
here. Let's just run down those 6 names once again in case people are just joining us. Why don't you lead us off?
We have Jiwon Yang from South Korea, 17 years old. We have Avery Galliano from the United States, also 17 years old. And Eva Gevorgian from Russia and Armenia, and she is 15 years old.
Also, we have Chun Lam Yu, Hong Kong. He is 16. J Jun Li Bui from Canada is 14. And Shuan Hern Lee from Australia is 16. Those are our 6 semi-finalists in this second edition of the Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition and Festival. Buddy Bray and Rachel Kudo, thanking you so much for watching. Have a good evening.